So we represent a number of Uber drivers as well as passengers here at the law office, and I get a lot of questions from my Uber driver friends and clients, and they come to me and they go, a lot of insurance related questions. And most recently, Uber has started to offer this kind of optional policy that comes out of the Uber driver's earnings. It's called the Beacon policy. I have it right here. I've gone through it, and I wanted to flip through it and kind of review it with you so you kind of understand what it is. It's really like it's a disability policy. You can think of it as a disability insurance policy. What I like about it is it offers you, the Uber driver, some protection if you're involved in an accident, even if that accident is your fault. As long as it really is an accident, right? You can't do anything on purpose or this won't cover you. But if you get into an accident, whether it's your fault or somebody else's fault, this insurance policy will cover you, and that's better than what Uber is offering you on its own, because if you are at fault, you really have very little. They're doing very little for you. If you are not at fault, then in fact Uber's policy is wonderful. But this is going to protect you and your family if there's an accident, even if it's your fault, and I like that if you can afford it. All right, so there is a limited death benefit. If you, the driver, die, your heirs get $50,000. And in fact, there's what's called a survivor's benefit. If you have a spouse or if you have dependent children, they will get a monthly check, the equivalent to 1% up of $150,000 until that $150,000 is exhausted. So your heirs get will get a lump sum, $50,000 if you pass away as a result of the accident, and if there are dependent children or if you're married, they will get a continuous monthly check up to that $150,000 amount. But the primary purpose of this policy is if you suffer a temporary or total disability as determined by your doctor. And what you should really be aware of is this disability portion of the policy is not money that goes to you. It's money that's going to go towards expenses that you would ordinarily incur. So either it's going to a facility or a home health care provider, or it's going to you after you've been forced to pay those expenses. So let's go through it. So we got this temporary total disability. You have to wait 90 days after you're deemed disabled for this policy to kick in, and then it will pay 50% of your average weekly earnings, right? So you can't, by the way, this also only applies to you if you're in an accident while using the Uber platform, right? If the app is shut off, this policy is not going to apply. But if you are an Uber driver and you're driving for Uber at the time of the accident, it will pay 50% of your average weekly earnings. So they take a look back at what you've earned over the past however many weeks. They take 50% of that and will pay between $100 and $500 per week to go towards the cost of your care, right? Let's say your doctor prescribes home health care because you are too injured to go to an outpatient, or you need help showering and bathing and transferring from the bed to the kitchen and feeding yourself. This policy will pay between $100 and $500 per week, depending on how much you work for Uber for those sorts of services. It also pays for, we'll get into that, it pays for medical expenses, right? If you need a surgery and you don't have health insurance that's going to cover it, only covers a portion of it, it's going to pay for those large hospital stays and surgeries and therapies and things like that. The limits they do have some limitations, as every insurance policy does. If you want to use this policy to go towards expenses related to seeing a chiropractor or an acupuncturist, the total benefit, they will not pay any more than $1,000. That's the full benefit you get. So that's not bad. That's, you can see a chiropractor for $50 a session. So that'll get you 20 visits. So that's all right. It's very specific to say that if you have doctor prescribed physical therapy or occupational therapy or vocational therapy, that those limits don't apply. It only applies to chiropractic care and acupuncture. You also get a limit of 20 visits if there's a psychological impact, right? You have anxiety, you have PTSD, you can get up to 20 visits for outpatient psychiatric care. There's also a limit for if you have to be in an inpatient, if you have to be institutionalized, they're going to pay 20 days worth of your inpatient for a maximum of $1,000. So that's actually not going to cover all that much probably. Okay, let's see, what else do we want to talk about here? Goes through the accidental death benefit. They have a schedule of what they will pay you if you lose, if you're dismembered as a result, right? If you lose a finger or a thumb or a limb, they kind of go through what they're going to be willing to pay you for that. They have an actual schedule. You lose a thumb, you can refer to the schedule. They tell you what they're going to pay you. Let's see. Interestingly, they include a right of subrogation, which is fine. The right of subrogation, what that means is if you come to a lawyer like me and I get you a nice big settlement or we get a nice big verdict and a bunch of money, this insurance policy says you have to pay us back for up to the amount of money that we spent for this policy. So if they spent $25,000 for you to go see doctors, and we have a $100,000 recovery, they're going to want $25,000 back because you were able to make what's called a third-party recovery. That's okay. We deal with this all the time. This is very typical with health insurance policies and disability insurance policies, and we can negotiate with these folks to pay them back as little as possible. Let's see. And I don't want to take up too much of your time. They emphasize that you have to be actually using Uber at the time in order to receive any of these benefits. This is not for your, when you're using your car for personal use. This policy is not going to protect you. And I think that's really all that's worth talking about, but it just keep in mind this is a policy that will pay out as you go along. The benefit to that is, for example, if you're involved in a serious accident and you come to a lawyer like me, I'm not able to offer you any money right off the bat, right? I can't hand you anything and say, hey, go use this money to go pay for your care. The care will be either paid for by your health insurance or what's called a letter of protection, where there are doctors who understand that there's a settlement pending and they will wait to get paid until the end of the case. What this policy lets you to do is not have to wait until the end of the case to get your medical bills paid for. It'll pay for them along the way. And of course, those medical bills can get very expensive, and it'll also pay for some things that you might need. Again, what I see as the most there's durable medical equipment and home health care to kind of help you along with your recovery. So it's worth looking into. You think of it as a partial or total disability policy more so than anything else. That'll help you kind of get back on your feet and offset some of those large expenses. And if the accident wasn't your fault, you come to someone like me, and then while this is paying out, we're then bringing a lawsuit or a claim against the at-fault driver. And then if they don't have sufficient coverage, we're then bringing a supplemental or an uninsured, underinsured motorist case against Uber themselves for up to $1 million. So I hope that helps. And if you have any other questions about it, feel free to reach out. If you're ever involved in an accident involving an Uber or Lyft, please give us a call. Everything is free until we make a recovery for you. Then of course we're paid on contingency fee. Take care, drive safely.